The back door of the funeral home creaked open, spilling daylight into the dim chapel. Olivia Chen sat alone in the front pew, clutching a crumpled tissue. She didn't turn. One by one, figures slipped into the chapel, quiet, solemn, their footsteps swallowed by the worn carpet. When Olivia finally turned, her breath caught. Her entire office was there. People who had never once joined her for lunch now filled the pews behind her. But 2 months earlier, in the break room of the small-town branch, none of them had even noticed her. The break room was always noisy at noon, except in the corner where she sat, day after day. She sat in the same corner, eating alone, her nose buried in a book. Coworkers chatted in clusters, laughing, making weekend plans. No one approached her table, and then one Tuesday, Joshua Reeves picked up his lunch tray and walked toward her corner. He set his tray down with a deliberate clink, loud enough to cut through the lunchroom chatter. Behind him, a few coworkers glanced over, already murmuring about the new girl. He didn't care.
Is this seat taken?
You've been watching me for 2 weeks. Just say whatever you came to say.
I came to say that eating lunch alone every day isn't doing either of us any favors. I am Joshua. What are you reading?
She didn't answer the question. Instead, she fixed him with a look that was equal parts suspicion and exhaustion. He'd seen that look before, on people who'd been burned too many times.
I am not in the market for a pity lunch.
Good, because I am not offering pity. I am offering better conversation than staring at a book.
The book is less disappointing.
Maybe. But it can't ask you how your day's going.
She didn't have a comeback for that. He pulled out the chair and sat. For a full 30 seconds, she just watched him unwrap his sandwich. Then, slowly, she closed her book and reached for her own lunch. They ate in near silence that first lunch, but the next day and the day after, Joshua walked straight to the corner table with his tray.
I packed an extra sandwich. You look like you could use it.
I didn't ask for that.
I know. That's why it's called an offer, not an order.
She took it without another word. And so the two-lunch tradition began, quietly, without fanfare. By the end of the week, Joshua noticed the shadows under her eyes hadn't faded. But at least she wasn't eating alone.
Why do you keep doing this? Nobody else bothers.
Because I remember what it's like to be the new guy in a small town, and 2 lunches is barely enough to fill a corner like this.
I transferred here to be closer to my grandmother. She's not well. That's why I don't have time for coffee groups or happy hours.
She didn't say more, but later that evening, Joshua saw her in the parking lot, face pressed to the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. The dashboard light caught the tears she wouldn't let anyone see.
I saw you in the parking lot last night. You don't have to pretend with me.
Then, I don't have room for small talk. My grandmother needs me.
Let me bring lunch for both of us. Every day. You save time. I save a table.
I pay for my own meals.
Fine. You pay for yours. I'll pay for mine. But I'll be here, and the chair won't be empty.
Why does he keep showing up? Doesn't he see the mess I am dragging around?
But she didn't say no. And the next week, Joshua started bringing 2 lunches, 1 turkey, 1 ham, always guessing her order wrong and not caring when she corrected him. The lunchroom chatter grew around them. But Olivia's shoulders dropped a half inch. That table wasn't a hiding spot anymore.
You still haven't told me what you are reading these days.
Same boring history book. But I'd rather hear about your grandmother. What was she like before she got sick?
She used to bake lemon cookies every Sunday. Even when I was halfway across the state, she'd ship them to me.
But outside their bubble, the office had taken notice. 2 weeks of shared lunches didn't go unnoticed in a small branch like theirs.
They're attached at the hip. Bet he's just trying to rescue the poor, quiet girl.
Rescue me. I am not some charity case for them to fix with their pity.
The next day, Olivia returned to eating alone at the corner table, her book propped like a shield. But Joshua wasn't willing to let the distance grow. That Friday evening, he carried a brown paper bag up her grandmother's porch steps. The note read, For your grandmother. No questions. No thanks. Just rest. An hour later, Olivia opened her door and found the bag sitting on the mat.
Who would do this? And how do they know about my grandmother?
She scanned the street, but there was no trace of the person who'd been there. By Monday, Olivia returned to the corner table. Joshua had beaten her there, 2 lunch trays already sweating on the wood.
The meals on my grandmother's porch. That was you, wasn't it?
Someone had to make sure you weren't doing this alone. I'm not apologizing for that.
I was so tired last week. I nearly didn't even check the doorstep. I barely remembered driving home. The doctors gave her a month, maybe less. It's terminal. That's the word they used.
Olivia, I'm so sorry.
Don't. I can't afford to break down. Not yet.
The lunchroom noise faded to a dull hum around them. Joshua looked at the shadows under her eyes and silently added another promise to the ones he'd already been keeping.
Then, we'll do this together. No questions. Just tell me what you need.
She didn't pull away. For the first time, she let the silence between them hold something other than loneliness.
Margaret, I need your help. Olivia's grandmother has weeks left, and she's been covering every shift herself. I can't keep up with all my work and hers.
Then we do more than cover shifts. Let's start a meal train. People cook. They drop off food. Nobody needs to know it's from us.
I make a decent lasagna. Count me in. And I'll take Wednesdays.
She can't know it's a group thing. If she thinks it's charity, she'll shut us out completely.
I'll put a sign-up sheet in the kitchen. No names, just days. Anonymous drop-offs, like little care packages.
The whiteboard filled quickly. Monday, chicken casserole. Tuesday, tomato soup. Wednesday, lasagna. No names, just promises. In his notebook, Joshua kept a master list. Who, what, when, ensuring Olivia never opened an empty doorstep.
What about her shifts? I can cover her early phone duty when she's at the hospice.
I'll set a collection jar by the coffee station, quietly for when the time comes.
And so, behind the scenes, Olivia was no longer doing this alone. Every evening, a different brown bag appeared on her grandmother's porch. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The handwriting changed, but the message stayed the same.
Another one. And the handwriting is different this time. How many people know about my grandmother?
The notes grew more intimate. For the long nights, something warm for after the hospice. Each bag felt like a stranger holding the door open just a crack. Meanwhile, at the office, her chair sat empty more often than not. Olivia was missing whole mornings now, stretched thin between work and the hospice.
Olivia's out again today. No, it's fine. I've got her calls. Tell the front desk to forward any urgent messages to me.
At the hospice, Olivia sat beside her grandmother, the same book from the break room open in her lap, the words blurring from exhaustion.
I am running on fumes. But who's leaving those meals? It can't just be Joshua. There are too many different hands.
The office carried on without her. Meetings, calls, small talk. But behind the break room door, Margaret quietly collected jar money, and no one questioned it.
I don't know how much longer I can do this. If something doesn't give, I'll break.
But every evening, a new meal waited. And every morning, Margaret erased her absence from the official logs. The secret held, but Olivia's grip was slipping. The week her grandmother stopped recognizing her face, Olivia stopped coming to lunch altogether. The corner table gathered dust. Joshua left 2 trays there every day anyway, but the chair across from him stayed cold.
I can't face him. Not when I am counting down days. I can't say out loud.
When Joshua finally caught her in the hallway, she wouldn't meet his eyes.
Olivia, please. I just want to know how you are doing. You don't have to carry this by yourself.
What do you want me to say? That I am fine. I am not fine. And no lunch tray is going to fix this.
She walked away, and the door closed with a hush that felt like a sentence. That evening, Joshua found Margaret still at her desk, and he didn't bother with pleasantries.
She's shutting everyone out. Should we just show up at the hospice? Tell her we've been here the whole time.
Not yet. Grief is its own country. We wait at the border until she's ready to let us in.
She drove home early from the hospice and found a coworker on her porch. A casserole dish, a note, and a quick retreat. The note carried 3 different handwritings now, proof that the anonymous kindness had many hands.
I saw someone from the office leaving food. How many people have you pulled into my business?
A few. They only agreed to drop off meals. Nobody knows the details, I promise.
You turned my private pain into an office agenda without ever asking me.
I saw someone disappearing. I couldn't just watch. That's not an agenda. It's being human.
She walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, but the argument echoed long after. That night, her grandmother's breathing grew shallow, each exhale a faint thread. Olivia held on. At 3:41 a.m., the thread snapped. The monitors went still. Evelyn Chen was gone. Olivia sat in the dark, alone with the silence, not yet knowing the office was already planning to fill it with every scrap of warmth she'd refused. The morning after, Margaret's phone rang before her first coffee. Olivia's voice was raw and flat.
Margaret, my grandmother passed last night. The service is Thursday. Small, family only. I won't be in for a few days.
Margaret delivered the news to Joshua in the break room. His jaw tightened.
Private service? She's holding a funeral expecting no one. We have to be there.
She doesn't want an audience. We'd be walking into her grief uninvited.
She's been uninvited her whole life. We're not asking. We're showing up.
I heard. I'll drive. No one should bury their last family with empty pews.
Margaret pulled out the collection jar. The stack of cards on her desk grew by the hour as whispered words spread.
Thursday, 2 p.m. No speeches, no flowers. Just bodies in the back pews, enough to hold the room.
The decision was made in minutes. Olivia had asked for solitude, but the office was quietly preparing to deliver the one thing she'd never asked for. A room full of people who saw her. The office carpool was arranged quietly. Tom volunteered his SUV. Joshua mapped the route to the chapel. Cards filled the break table. Margaret penned, "With you in thought. No names, just quiet solidarity."
I don't know how to do this alone. The house feels hollow without her voice.
She chose the same powder blue blouse her grandmother had pressed for her. It still smelled of lavender. Joshua stood in the funeral home parking lot as the hearse arrived. The office convoy parked far from the entrance.
We park here, walk in together, no rush.
Inside, the chapel was empty. The minister's steps echoed. Olivia arrived early, clutching a white rose. She sat in the front pew, the silence pressing against her ribs. The rose trembled in her hand. Outside, the office checked their watches and adjusted their ties. They gathered without a word. The back door of the chapel was ajar. Joshua nodded. It was time. The minister stepped to the pulpit and began the service. The words were familiar, but in the empty chapel, they felt like an echo.
Nobody else came. It's just me and her, like always.
Outside, Joshua could hear the faint murmur of the service beginning. He turned to Margaret.
Joshua, we need to go in before the eulogy.
Not yet. Let her feel the weight of the silence first. She'll know we're here without us saying a word.
The office stood in a tight cluster, no one speaking. Inside, Olivia closed her eyes, trying to hold back tears. The white rose lay across her lap.
I can't do this. I don't know how to let go alone.
Joshua checked his watch. The moment was now. He placed his hand on the back door. The wood was cold beneath his palm. He took one last breath. The back door of the funeral home pushed open. Joshua held it wide. Daylight spilled into the dim chapel, a harsh rectangle cutting across the carpet. Olivia didn't turn. The creak of the door might have been the wind. Joshua stepped inside first, then Margaret, then Tom. Behind them, a dozen others, all in dark clothes, all silent.
Someone's there. I didn't ask for anyone. Who would come?
She turned. Her body went rigid, the white rose slipping from her fingers. The entire office stood in the back of the chapel. Joshua, Margaret, Tom, and faces she'd seen in hallways, but never spoken to. They didn't march forward. They simply found seats in the back pews, like they'd always planned to be there. Her breath caught in her throat. The hand that held the rose now gripped the edge of the pew. She saw Joshua look at her across the rows, and she couldn't breathe.
They came. All of them. For her. For me.
The minister paused, then continued. His words now carried by more than stone walls. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. She didn't wipe them. She let them fall. Margaret rose, walked to the front, and placed a white lily on the memorial table. She didn't say a word. Olivia's hand covered her mouth. A sob escaped before she could stop it. The office sat motionless, a wall of quiet solidarity. They had come to carry the silence together. She looked at the fallen rose on the carpet. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel the need to pick it up alone. Through the blur, she found Joshua's face. He wasn't smiling, he was simply there, and that was enough. Then the minister asked if anyone would like to share. Olivia tensed, but no one moved. They hadn't come to perform. The service rolled on, but something had shifted. The room no longer echoed with absence. The service ended. Olivia walked outside alone, arms wrapped around her middle, the white rose still on the chapel floor. Joshua found her on the chapel steps, staring at the empty parking lot. He kept his distance.
You did all this? The food, the office showing up. It was all you?
Not just me, the whole office. Margaret, Tom, and others have been cooking and dropping off meals for weeks.
I thought I was invisible here, that nobody noticed I was drowning.
You weren't invisible. Not to me. I noticed from the first day, from the corner table.
The sobs came hard, shaking her shoulders. She looked away, embarrassed, but he didn't move. He stepped closer, gently touching her shoulder. She turned and fell into him, her weight crashing, her fists curled against his shirt, her tears soaking the denim. He held on, letting her cry it out. The clouds split, a strip of sun warming them. She didn't let go, and neither did he. Monday morning, Olivia returned to her desk. A small potted plant sat beside her monitor, a white ribbon tied around the pot. A card leaned against it, signed by everyone. The card read, "Olivia, we're glad you are here. You belong with us." Below it, 20 signatures.
I used to think those words were just for greeting cards. They never meant anything real.
At noon, the break room hummed with chatter. Olivia stood in the doorway, tray in hand, eyes drifting to the crowded table where Margaret, Tom, and others sat. She took a breath and walked toward them, not the corner. Tom saw her first and pulled out an empty chair.
Saved you a seat. Hope you like tuna casserole. Margaret's been experimenting again.
Laughter rippled around the table. Olivia felt her shoulders drop, her grip on the tray relax. Joshua arrived moments later with 2 lunches, setting one in front of her without asking. She looked up and gave him a small, grateful smile. The corner table sat empty behind them. Margaret reached over and squeezed Olivia's hand. No words, just a squeeze that said everything. Joshua rounded the corner with 2 lunch trays balanced, not toward the empty corner, but straight to the crowded main table where Olivia sat, surrounded. He set the trays down, his grin wider than ever, and the old question hung in the air with new weight.
Is this seat taken?
The chatter dimmed just long enough for Olivia to meet his eyes, and the room seemed to hold its breath.
It's been waiting for you.
Told you, she's a fast learner.
Took you long enough to keep good company, Olivia.
Olivia's smile grew, something unspooling in her chest that had been wound tight for months, since the first day she walked in alone. Joshua sat down, and the lunch hour dissolved into the kind of noise that wasn't loneliness. And the corner table, under the window, held only a small vase of wildflowers that hadn't been there before. A quiet testament that nothing was as it had been. Hours later, the office emptied. Olivia stood by the door, keys in hand, watching the sunset stain the parking lot gold. Joshua appeared beside her, jacket slung over his arm. Neither spoke. They just fell into step toward the bench under the maple tree.
Thank you. For the food, the funeral, all of it. I never thought anyone noticed me here.
I noticed from day one. You weren't invisible to me.
They sat in the quiet, the maple leaves rustling overhead. The office was still behind them, but it no longer felt like a place where people disappeared.
I spent so long believing I had to handle everything alone. It's hard to unlearn that.
Good thing you have a whole office full of stubborn people who refuse to let you.
Olivia laughed, a real one, and the sound felt like a door swinging open. They watched the last of daylight sink behind the office roof. Neither moved. Neither had to. The days of eating lunch alone had ended, not with a grand declaration, but with a seat that was always waiting. Weeks folded into each other. Olivia's laugh became a regular sound at Margaret's desk. Tom kept her coffee mug topped up, and they traded stories about their worst managers. Her desk now held more than files. A small succulent, a magnetic poetry kit, and 2 photos side by side. One was her grandmother. The other was the whole office crammed into the break room, all sticky with celebration. The corner table stayed empty, but it was no longer a monument to loneliness, just a spot where fresh flowers sometimes appeared. The break room hummed with the sound of a dozen people who had learned that showing up was the smallest, most powerful thing. On the bench outside, Joshua and Olivia often sat late, talking about everything and nothing until the stars came out.
I used to think coming to work meant keeping my head down and counting hours. Now it feels like coming home.
That's what happens when you stop eating lunch alone. The whole world starts to show up.
And in a small branch office, in a town no one had heard of, a girl who once believed she was invisible finally let the world see. She'd been there all along. One afternoon, the break room was quiet. Joshua sat at the corner table, 2 lunch trays already waiting in the old spot. Olivia appeared in the doorway. She didn't hesitate, just walked over and slid into the chair across from him. No words passed. The golden window light fell across the table, catching the old scuff marks they both knew by heart.
I found this. Thought it might belong with your novel.
It was a simple leather bookmark, no inscription, but she recognized the care it took.
You never forget the small things, do you?
Their hands rested near each other on the table. The silence between them had once been heavy. Now it was the lightest thing in the room. They ate slowly, unhurried. The corner table, once an island, now felt like the center of everything. The wildflowers in the small vase had been replaced that morning. Neither had mentioned who brought them. It didn't matter anymore. And when the lunch hour ended, Joshua picked up his tray with a grin that promised tomorrow. Olivia watched him go, then tucked the bookmark into her novel and opened it to the next chapter. The late afternoon light fell in amber sheets through the break room window. Olivia sat at the corner table, her novel open. Joshua walked in, a worn paperback in his hand. Without a word, he took the chair opposite her. They read in companionable silence. The occasional page turn, the only sound. Olivia looked up, her eyes finding him lost in his book. The scarred table between them felt like solid ground. A small smile crossed her lips, a quiet understanding that she was no longer alone. The wildflowers on the table had shed a petal, and no one moved to brush it away. The room held nothing but the slow, steady rhythm of 2 people sharing space. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the parking lot gold. A new day would come, but this one was enough. She finally stopped eating lunch alone and started living in the spaces where she was always meant to be seen.